You are exhausted. You spend your days managing crises that do not belong to you, anticipating the needs of someone else, and sacrificing your own peace of mind to hold their chaotic life together. You pour your energy, your time, and your money into solving their problems. But despite your absolute loyalty, the crises keep happening, the situation deteriorates, and you are left entirely drained, wondering why your help isn't working. Psychology first identified this specific pattern of behavior in the 1970s. Clinicians at addiction treatment centers in Minnesota began closely observing the spouses and family members of severe alcoholics who were checking into rehab. The doctors noticed something unusual. The family members, the ones desperately trying to save the addicts, were physically ill, deeply depressed, and emotionally erratic. They were suffering from their own distinct psychological condition. This obsessive self-sacrificing behavior proved to be a highly destructive coping mechanism. The medical community eventually identified the pattern as a specific psychological condition, codependency. This page shows the foundational definition written by author Melody Beattie in her seminal work on the subject. She defines a codependent as a person who has let another person's behavior affect them and who is completely obsessed with controlling that person's behavior. The true source of the codependent's agony does not actually stem from the other person's addiction or irresponsibility. The suffering comes directly from their own toxic, impossible obsession with trying to control another human being. There is a distinct line between genuinely helping someone in need and taking care of them. Genuine help empowers a person to solve their own problem. Taking care of them is a covert strategy to manipulate outcomes and manage your own anxiety. In this state, you stop acting and start reacting. Your entire emotional baseline becomes governed by the moods, the failures, and the emergencies of the people around you. The psychological engine that drives this toxic cycle of control was mapped out by Stephen Cartman. It is known as the Cartman Drama Triangle. The cycle begins here. The rescuer. You eagerly step in to fix a problem you were not asked to fix. You offer money, advice, or labor, convincing yourself that you are the only one capable of preventing a disaster. Inevitably, the rescue fails. The person makes another mistake. Now you shift to the persecutor. You become angry. You nag, you scold, and you remind them of everything you sacrificed, using guilt to manipulate their behavior. Finally, exhausted by your own anger, you collapse into the victim. You drown in self-pity, feeling entirely unappreciated and used, wondering why you are always the one carrying the burden. This cycle functions like an addiction. Because the codependent derives their entire sense of self-worth from fixing things, they must subconsciously seek out new crises and broken people just to feel useful. Spinning through these three roles month after month destroys the codependent's mental health. The constant adrenaline of crisis management leads to severe anxiety, clinical depression, and ultimately total emotional burnout. In the desperate, obsessive attempt to monitor and manage someone else's life, the codependent completely abandons the only person they have the actual power to save. To break the drama triangle, the codependent must learn a psychological practice called detachment. This requires actively separating your own emotions and responsibilities from the actions of others. Detachment means accepting the hard truth that you cannot control the person you love. This practice shifts the focus from managing their crises to preserving your own emotional sovereignty. Imagine gripping a heavy, coarse rope in a tug-of-war. Your hands are blistered and bleeding from pulling so hard. Detachment means you simply open your hands and drop the rope. You take those newly freed hands and you pull your energy back to your own center. You stop scanning the horizon for other people's emergencies and begin looking at your own life. This internal focus allows you to establish strict, healthy boundaries. You define exactly what you will and will not tolerate, creating a protective barrier around your own emotional and physical well-being. Because these habits of over-responsibility and misplaced guilt are usually learned in childhood, unlearning them often requires professional therapy. You have to rewire years of behavioral programming. Recovery requires shifting the core question of your internal monologue. You have to stop asking, "How can I fix them?" and start asking the much harder question, "What do I need right now?" As the author Agnes Repplier noted, it is not easy to find happiness in ourselves,
but it is impossible to find it anywhere else.